up, everybody? And it's time for another collabo. It's been a while since the last time I did collabo with another fellow YouTubers, but I figured what better time to do that again than now, as we are discussing one of the biggest movies of this year, Godzilla versus Kong, which, by the way, is now available on HBO Max, and also you can watch it in theaters. If you haven't seen the film, everybody, you might want to stay away from this video because this is, after all, spoiler talk. I repeat, there are spoilers in this video. This video is only for those of you, my fellow Godzilla versus Kong fans who have seen this epicness. And I'm joined today by my fellow mutual Hollywood Critics Association member and resident expert on all things Godzilla and King Kong, Alexander Robinson. How are you, Alexander? How are you?
Hi, Rama. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Excellent. Again, thank you for making this happen. Been looking forward to this. Before we go ahead, tell us a bit about yourself, Alex, and when or how did your fandom of Godzilla and King Kong begin?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, my name's Alexander Robinson, but I run the YouTube channel The Real Mr. Robinson, and as Rama pointed out, I'm a fellow member of the Hollywood Critics Association, and I've been a fan of Godzilla and Kong for a long time. More Godzilla. Um, God, the first movie I ever saw, and this is like kind of shameful, was the 1998 Roland Emmerich movie. And
Yeah.
that's because a lot of my friends at elementary school back then kind of pressured me into watching it. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I rented it. My parents rented it from Blockbuster, and they rented one of the Japanese movies, so I could watch it to get an idea of the real Godzilla. And I didn't like the Roland Emmerich movie. Like, I didn't think much about it when I first saw it. So
Mm.
I was like, whatever. And then I saw one of the Japanese movies, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah from 1991, and I was like, "Where has this been all my life? I need more of this." And so eventually, I ran through every VHS tape of Godzilla that my local Blockbuster had, and when I wanted to watch the original King Kong versus Godzilla, my dad said, "No, you're going to watch the original King Kong before you do that, so you know about King Kong." And then the rest is history. And I've been working up to try to watch every single Godzilla movie since 2004, and then I officially caught up before the new Legendary movies came in.
That Roland Emmerich movies, I remember watching that as a kid, and I'm like, this is the giant iguana movie. It's not Godzilla, and then it's like a rip off of Jurassic Park halfway through with all the
Yeah,
velociraptors like running
yeah,
around.
that movie really owes more to Jurassic Park than it does Godzilla. To the point where the original studio Toho spent 3 movies like poking fun at the Roland Emmerich movie, in some subtle ways and some not so subtle ways.
Totally, totally. So let's get to the reactions here. I want to share my reaction when I first saw this Godzilla versus Kong movie earlier this week. I enjoyed it. I mean, it was action packed. I was looking forward to the fights, just like everybody else, and the movie gave me that. And this is the first of the, because I think it started with the 2014 installment. This is
Yeah,
the first of all the series where they actually lessen or reduce the boring human drama part and just let the fights happen. There's still, necessary human stuff, but at least they really amp up the action, which I enjoy more than I did. For example, the 2014 Godzilla movie, you remember that, right? Gareth Edwards.
yeah.
Every time something exciting about to happen, they cut away. I was like, what is going on? It's like a blue ball thing. But so this is very satisfying in that respect. It's not perfect, there's still some parts where it's just kind of like a little bit clunky, but overall, I came for the fight, and the fight is what I got. What's your reaction?
I really like this movie.
Mm,
Not, I honestly not sure where it ranks in terms of this particular series.
mm,
And I knew going in that this was going to be a completely different movie than the original from 1962, because you can't remake. Like even Legendary said, we're not remaking that movie.
Hmm.
And I thought for a rematch between both Godzilla and Kong, it damn well succeeded. But and yeah, they don't do much with the human characters. They're just plot devices to get the plot moving along.
Right.
But I mean, there's still some stuff that you have to like say is bad. Like we can forgive it because it's not the main focus, but when something's bad, it's pretty bad.
Yes. So you saw the Japanese versions, the old ones, with the bodysuits. I mean, can I ask you, because I haven't seen those. I grew up in Asia, but I missed out on that all the whole thing. Um, what do you find fascinating about those movies, those bodysuit Godzilla Kong movies?
Well, more like it's a couple of things. One, it's sort of getting a more basic idea of how those movies were made. Like
Mm.
it's more charming to see a bunch of guys in giant suits, or as it's known as suitmation,
Oh.
um, just like destroying miniatures and fighting each other. And then you have a real appreciation for the people who are actually in those suits because they're heavy. They can something could easily go wrong to where they're like seriously injured, or in some cases they drown.
Wow.
And there's also a lot of the movies were directed, or at least in the olden days, they were directed by a friend of Akira Kurosawa, Shiro Honda, and
Mm.
his statement for those movies was to try to make them more than just monster movies. Like the original Godzilla is a metaphor for the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings
Mm.
and just the dangers of nuclear weapons. And the original King Kong versus Godzilla, the original Japanese version, was actually an intentional comedy that poked fun at the Japanese television industry at the time. And Godzilla and Kong were basically representing the extremes that advertisers will do to get attention. But in the US, because that's a subject matter that wouldn't fly with American audiences, they had to re-edit it and make it more accessible to US audiences. So all the clever satire that made the Japanese version so great is just lost. Um,
Yeah.
that
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, no, I was done.
Oh, no worries. I just want to also ask you if you ever saw I think it's by Toho, the anime Godzilla on Netflix. I think a few
Oh
years
yeah,
ago.
the anime trilogy.
Yeah, I saw that. It was very much of a slow burn, but I liked it. It felt so. How do you call that? It's a Godzilla that I haven't seen before. What are your thoughts on that?
Uh, you talk about wasted potential
Okay.
or a tease. Like those movies are every like whenever people talk about how much of a tease the 2014 Godzilla movie was, I
Yeah.
was like, no, those movies are a tease because the first movie it has this really great concept. Basically, it's reverse Planet Hulk but with Godzilla,
Yes.
and it's called Planet of the Monsters, but the only monsters on that planet are Godzilla and some dragons. In that same movie, they also tease Mecha Godzilla, and you're like, oh, cool. The next movie, it's going to be Godzilla fighting Mecha Godzilla. No, Mecha Godzilla is just a giant city, and there's no actual fight. And then the third movie, it's like, oh, he's going to fight King Ghidorah, his arch enemy. And then it's like, no, Ghidorah just awkwardly bites Godzilla, and
Yes.
it's I don't know, it's just awkward to watch, and it's the big problem where they focus on the human character so much
Mm.
that like most of that movie is just exposition on a science that's just so fantastical that it makes it sound a little more stupid than it has to be.
Well, that goes to my next question actually, because I think there is this ongoing debate, like how much human drama there needs to be in these movies. Because we come to see again to see the fight, and sometimes we encounter these many ensemble cast human characters that are like freaking, I don't know, Robert Altman movie or something. I was like, or one critic to call it a Robert Altman movie. I was like, what's going on here? Like how do you balance it out with the creature fight? What do you think on that?
I think you have to have elements that service the plot itself and the monster fighting,
Mm,
and it has to be more. It's kind of weird because the older movies, there's probably like out of all the older Godzilla movies, there's probably about a few of them that actually are really have really great human characters, and it's just how good the writing is on that aspect and how well it's incorporated into the monster stuff.
mm.
Like with Godzilla King of the Monsters, I thought like the idea of Kyle Chandler's character having to um, like there are two there's one thing I like about that movie in terms of the human side where it's him trying to make amends with these titans, despite having lost his son in the events of the first movie. There's a lot of potential there that I don't think they don't do much with. And then you have Vera Farmiga's character where she uses her excuse of releasing all these monsters around the world as some sort of grieving process, and like this is terrible. Like there's some stuff I like King of the Monsters more than most people do, but when that movie's bad, it gets really bad.
Yes, I totally agree. So let's get to the biggest spoiler of this new movie, Mecha Godzilla, appearing halfway through, and Damian Bashir's character is involved in creating him. It's convenient that the kid from Deadpool 2 is the one who names him. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that's very convenient. Like, oh, Mecha Godzilla, out of nowhere, out of the blue, he just names him. But
and it's in that big dramatic like wait for the name.
so funny. Um, I understand. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Mechagodzilla appeared in the 1973 movie. Is that correct? The original
74. You're
74.
close though.
Exactly, 74 movie, and so that's his first showing up ever. And I don't know. I guess I love this twist. It's kind of funny how the title of the movie itself is misleading because you think it's Godzilla versus Kong only, not Godzilla versus Kong versus Mechagodzilla. But what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that twist?
I heard beforehand that Mechagodzilla was going to be in the movie.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I mean, because it was probably one of the worst kept secrets. Um, but still, it's not. It's like they don't show Mechagodzilla in the trailers at all. So unless you like really do a frame by frame analysis, so the trailers did a fine job of trying to hide Mechagodzilla, and still, I think the title of the movie does deliver. And whenever I heard of Mechagodzilla, even the thought of him being in the movie, I was not for it because
Hmm.
I thought it was just like it would take away from the Godzilla and Kong battle. And watching this movie, it didn't feel as forced as I thought it would be because, like, they still focus on Godzilla and Kong fighting each other since, again, they established that they're arch rivals, and that's what we want to see. My biggest relief was that the fan theory that everyone had, where oh Godzilla in the trailers, that's not Godzilla, that's actually Mecha Godzilla. I'm so glad that was not true because that would have been like that would have been more misleading if anything, because it's like, oh, the movie's called Godzilla versus Kong. No, it was actually Mecha Godzilla versus Kong, and
Yeah.
Godzilla then pops up at the end of the movie.
The bone that I have to pick with this movie, as far as Mechagodzilla, is I don't know if you agree with me on this, but the design, I hate the design. It looks like a reject from Michael Bay's Transformers, one of those giant robots. What do you think?
I'm 50-50 on the design.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I honestly, if we're talking about recent Mecha Godzilla designs, I like the one from Ready Player One, and I
Ah.
kind of wish that was the look, but man, what can you do? Yeah, it took me a while to get used to the design, because some of the I guess the my favorite design was from the 2000s, the early 2000s, because it's so slick and just really cool looking all around. But considering that the very last incarnation of Mechagodzilla before this was just a giant city, I look at this and like, okay, I'll take it. And he's tough enough for both monsters, and that's how Mechagodzilla should be.
I agree. You made a good point there, so you definitely changed my mind. And Here's the thing. Also, another thing that I love about this movie, the lighting. You know, the fight in the city with all that mood lighting around. I don't know
Mhm.
if Gareth Edwards and I forgot the name of the King of
Michael
Monsters
Doherty.
director exactly. I don't know if they incorporated that. But what are your thoughts on Adam Wingard's applying some of those colorful, really cool lightings in this movie?
I think he was a huge fan of Pacific Rim. But
Ah,
I mean, it's Pacific Rim had some really impressive giant monster scenes that hasn't been done, at least in an American film.
true.
And I think Adam Wingard took that just to basically Pacific Rim walked so Godzilla versus Kong could run. And I definitely think the action scenes in this movie are the best of the MonsterVerse. I know a lot of people give crap for for Gareth Edwards Godzilla. But like having watched that movie several times and on different TVs, I realized that it depends because the biggest complaint about that movie is like, oh, it's too dark because you can't see anything. I
Hmm.
find that not to be the case because it's like, well, it ultimately depends on where you're watching it. So, like I've
Ah.
one of my TVs, it looks perfect. Like I can see everything that's going on. If I watch it on my computer, I can't see a thing. And then I was watching it a couple days ago. I was watching it on a 4K TV, and for some reason, it blurred all the movements, so it was just so jarring. So I think it's a weird instance where that movie it looks good or looks bad depending on what TV or where you watch it. And then
So
with
yeah.
King of the Monsters, you could pick any kind of TV or any place to watch that movie. The action scenes, I think, definitely suffered because the camera's all up in the monsters, like to the point where it's just too close up. Like
Uh,
Adam Wingard knew how to frame this movie.
Agreed. Agreed. Now, uh, King of the Monsters explored a little bit of Godzilla. You know, I think underwater with the Ken Watanabe get killed off.
Hmm.
Whereas this movie kind of explores more of King Kong, where he came from,
Yeah.
and the whole upside down gravity thing. It was fantastic, I think, in my opinion, that whole world. Um, you said that you're more of a Godzilla man than a King Kong man, but let me know what you think of this movie's take on Kong's origin place.
Well, it's I thought it was pretty unique because this is a different interpretation of King Kong. So we don't have to like depend on the roots of the 1933 movie, which that
Hmm.
was definitely more fantasy. It's like, hey, there's this island that nobody's discovered that dinosaurs and other giant creatures happen to have survived on. And this is definitely more science fiction. And it's a pretty cool way to explore his origins. And I actually thought it was a really clever idea to make Kong more of the movie be focused on him, because Kong's just an easier character to latch onto than Godzilla. And since this is the fourth movie, only one of them prior was a Kong movie. So it's like, hey, why not have him be the focus of this one? Um, and it's just like I really love how this series has been hinting at the idea of a Hollow Earth concept since Kong Skull Island, and then we finally get to see it in this movie.
I Some people say like, I wish the movie would say more about Alexander's backstory or Rebecca Hall's backstory, but my reaction is, who cares, man? I mean, Alexander's not hired to because he looks like a scientist or because he has the gravitas of a scientist. I'm here for the fights. And but onto this other topic, because I looked up Rotten Tomatoes, and the
Uh-huh.
movie so far has gotten about 80-90% ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. It's been well
La-
received.
Last I checked, it was 80, and it just got certified.
Yes, so it's very fresh, and but there are some criticisms out there, and I was looking through some of the fans, the users' criticisms, either IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes, and one
Hmm.
of them that I found was, I think this one has some merit to it, and he said that it's been three Godzilla movies now, including this one. All of them lack Japanese representation beyond a small part, Especially in this movie, we got one guy and then you kill him off. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on there?
It's funny you say that because my own review on my channel went up today, and I had that exact same problem.
Mm,
Um, like I thought with the Gareth Edwards movie, having the first act take place in Japan um, was great because it's like, hey, you recognize that this is a Japanese centric character. And then the rest of the movie, it's like, well, we only have Ken Watanabe, which I mean, okay, I'm not too bothered by that. With King of the Monsters, okay, you got Ken Watanabe again, and then you kill him off. You kill
yeah.
off the only Japanese actor. And then in this movie, not only do you just have another Japanese actor that's kind of in the background mostly,
Hmm.
but if this, I don't know if this is going to be the last movie in the series, but if it was, it would have been nice to see the big final battle take place in, say, Tokyo rather than Hong Kong. Like, I mean, I guess I understand the reasons for placing it in Hong Kong, even if they're more like business wise. But for again, for a series with a character whose roots are set in Japan, that they do the minimal amount of effort to connect. Like, they just suck all the Japanese elements out of Godzilla.
So you can. It's fair to say that it's insulting, right?
I'm not gonna say it's insulting because it's not a case like, because Godzilla has evolved to a point where he's an international icon.
Ah.
So Godzilla's like, anybody could latch on to Godzilla and be instantly attracted to it. But it would be nice to just put more effort into it. It's not like with Ghost in the Shell, where you're like, hey, we have this manga or anime that's purely Japanese, so we're going to cast a Caucasian actress in the role. Like, Godzilla has enough international appeal to where I would have liked more Japanese representation, but it doesn't come across as insulting. But maybe that's just me. I would love to hear more more people from Japan voice their thoughts on the matter.
Me too. Me too. So, fill me in, because you mentioned, like, I don't know if this is gonna be the last or the end of the series. I don't know either. I don't
Mhm.
know if WB is planning another installment. We don't know. But in the past, of all those past movies that you've seen, with the Suitmation, so Godzilla went up against Kong, and then went up against Mecha Godzilla. What other Titans have that has been done before? That has been done before in the past?
Well, Toho has what they call the main five,
Okay.
which is Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Mechagodzilla. All
Oh.
of them have been in this series, which I think it's like, if this ends up being the last, hey, you got the five most popular monsters from the Godzilla series. But then you also have monsters that are probably a little more out there.
Hmm.
You have Hedorah, which is a giant. It's a giant garbage monster. And fun fact: the one of the executive producers on this on all these American Godzilla movies, including this new one, uh, was the director of that movie featuring the monster Hedorah,
Okay.
Yoshimitsu Banno, and he passed away in 2017.
Hmm.
So uh, Hedorah would be an interesting choice. You got this monster called Gigan, who's basically a cybernetic bird with a buzzsaw chest and like hooks for hands. That would be a
Nice.
little outlandish, but at this point, if you brought in Mechagodzilla and you established that King Ghidorah is from outer space, I don't think that's too far fetched. Um,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish the thought. I'm sorry.
and then, I mean, there's some other more grounded monsters. Like you have Baragon, which is sort of a dinosaur that digs into the earth. You have Manda, who's a giant sea serpent. So there's a lot of choices you could pick, but I think they got the main monster stars in this movie to the point where, hey, I'm happy I saw them.
Um, when Man of Steel came out, Alex, I don't know if you remember, but a lot of YouTubers kind of poke fun at it. They made
Uh
this
huh.
compilation of a death count because Superman versus Zod fight was so massive that all the buildings in Metropolis, and like a lot of people died in those buildings.
Yeah,
So, so when I saw this movie with all the chaos in Hong Kong, that's what crossed my mind. I'm like, did that even ever kind of like bother you? Those kinds of details, or no?
it doesn't. It doesn't for a monster movie, and I could because with a Godzilla and Kong movie, you kind of expect that kind of stuff,
Right.
and plus, Godzilla. It's not Godzilla or Kong's job to try to save people. Or Superman, it's like you have all these moments in Man of Steel, which I rewatched a couple weeks ago and thought it was okay. But he does have some moments where he saves people,
Mm.
despite everyone want to say, despite people saying, "Oh, he doesn't save anyone in that movie." No, he does, but
Mhm.
he sure didn't give a damn when it came to Metropolis. And then at the end, where he saves this family that's too dumb to get out of the way. Um, yeah, it's different. Like with a monster movie, you'd be disappointed if you didn't see a city getting destroyed. But with Superman, you kind of expect a little more care, which I think is the reason why in Zack Snyder's Justice League that entire Russian town is abandoned.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we can destroy the city without having to worry about people dying.
Yeah. Whedon has to go through the whole saving part.
Yeah, that I mean, I get it because it's like, hey, we want to see these people be heroes, but at the same time, it didn't make any sense for these people to be uh, in like a quarantine zone. I know this is not about Justice League at all, but it's like, come on.
No, right? No, it's always fun to have this discussion, so no worries. So as we're winding down here, can you share with us to the viewers what I know they're gonna I'm gonna invite them to go watch your video review of Godzilla vs Kong, but just share just a couple of your criticisms of the things that you wish this movie Godzilla vs Kong had done, but it didn't.
In terms of the monster stuff, I don't have that many complaints. I mean,
Hmm.
I do have one. It could be a nitpick for people who aren't as well versed in the series,
Mm-hmm.
but since King of the Monsters actually brought back since King of the Monsters brought in the official Godzilla theme that was in the older movies, it was kind of weird for that theme to just go missing this time around. And while the score is fantastic, um, it's the equivalent of making a Star Wars movie or a Harry Potter movie, and then the next movie you get a theme that sounds like it, but is not quite it. Like it seems like it was a piece of music made to avoid a copyright claim. But that again, that's just me. I don't know if many people will have a problem with that. And I'm thinking back in that theme. It's like I would have loved to hear the original Godzilla theme in this movie, but I just think of it as like the battle theme between these two. The one that they actually cite as Godzilla's theme in this movie. It's like, hey, this is just the battle theme between Godzilla and Kong. Um, and I wish the movie had pulled back on the humor.
Ah,
Um,
yes.
because I thought even with I like I like all the movies to varying degrees. I never say any of them are perfect, but I always thought like when the series tries to do humor, it's
Mhm.
very bizarre and off-putting. And
Agreed.
like I think I don't want I'm assuming since this movie was co-written by Eric Pearson did who co-wrote Thor Ragnarok. I'm curious if a lot of the humor was his doing, and it's like, okay, what works in the MCU doesn't really work in something else, as we've seen several times beforehand. Um, I just I don't know. It never got to a point where I was cringing or rolled my eyes, but I wasn't a fan of the humor.
I agree, man. Especially not to blame him, but the kid in Deadpool 2, they really have him be the comic relief, and it just didn't work in this movie. And you're right. You mentioned the writer, and I think I posted a while ago on Twitter, and you and Michael Lee kind of disagree with it, and that's okay. You know, I hated Thor Ragnarok because it tried too hard to be funny, and I think the part of fragments of that kind of is showing in this movie Godzilla versus Kong, and I wish they had kind of dialed it down and just focus on the fights, definitely for sure. Um, I'm curious, Alex. You've been a fan for many years of these properties of these characters. Do you collect any Godzilla or King Kong memorabilia, merchandise, any
Oh yeah,
Blu-ray? Yeah, talk to me about
yeah.
that.
I own, with the exception of the anime trilogy because it's on Netflix. I own every Godzilla movie on Blu-ray.
Wow.
As for the King Kong movies, there's only two that I don't own, and those are the ones produced by Dino De Laurentiis.
Mm.
One because it's kind of hard to find up until Shout Factory releases their new version in May, and the other is just downright impossible to find. But it's also the worst King Kong movie made, so I'm not in a hurry to get it. And then I have a bunch of like as a kid and into my teens, I've been collecting a bunch of mostly Godzilla figures because Godzilla's become more of this giant empire than than Kong has. But right now, they're most of them are in storage, so I can't really show them off. And then one thing, it's a shame that there's this mic hiding it because
Yay!
yeah, I got this. Yeah, I have a few. I have a handful of Godzilla and Kong shirts.
Oh man, bowing to you, my friend. Your fandom is admirable. Definitely, you
Thank
are
you.
legit. And finally, again, one last time, share with the viewers where they can follow you and find you on social media, and where they can subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Like I said, you can find me on the Real Mr. Robinson on YouTube. If you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Facebook. Just type in Alexander Robinson. Instagram, the Real Mr. Robinson. Twitter, Real Mr. underscore Robinson. And back in January, I started doing Twitch, and you can find me at Real Mr. Robinson. I stream right now. I stream every Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday. That schedule is going to change when we get to May.
Yeah, big fan of your watch time parties for sure, my friend. So
Thank
everybody,
you.
go check out, and I'll provide the links in the description box below this video. Go follow and subscribe to Alex, and make sure you go check out Godzilla vs. Kong on HBO Max and in theaters. Share your comments, share your thoughts, and subscribe. Let's rock
Yes.
this.